we've kind of similar in a way. And when you work with someone on stage who has, I've said the word before, generosity of spirit, like someone like Colin as well, or Marina, it's so easy. No one cares who gets the applause, who gets the laugh. It's just the show.
The team. Yeah,
it's just the team. It's so good. So good.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan. Today's guest, wow, what an experience and what a spectacular chat. David provides the goods with great insights and such a wonderful story to tell. Plus, he's just a great all-rounded individual, as you'll soon hear. His journey is really interesting. I felt inspired and relaxed. I'm glad we could do this one in person. Okay, let's get into it. David Hobson is an Australian tenor, composer and performer. He's Australian royalty in the music space and is one of Australia's best known operatic and recording artists. He has sung many roles for Opera Australia and in both state and international opera companies, including his award-winning performance of Rodolfo and the title role in Orpheus. His list of credits is way too long to name, so check them out in the episode notes. He's also well known from his appearances on Carols in the Domain, Carols by Candlelight, Spicks and Specks, It Takes Two, Dancing with the Stars, as well as a presenter on the Foxtel's Arts Channel Studio. He's recorded numerous albums with many reaching #1 chart status. David has also won awards including Operatic Performer of the Year, the Sydney Critics Circle Award, the Age Performing Arts Award for Best Performer in Opera, and an Australian Record Industry Association ARIA Award. In 2023, David performed around Australia in a 60-city concert tour of The Two of Us with Marina Prior. David recently toured around Australia with comedian Colin Lane in their show In Tales. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about saying no, collaboration, falling into his work, physicality behind opera, doing comedy with Colin Lane, his voice and looking after it, gratitude, rejection, generosity of spirit, fork in the road moments, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it.
If you possibly the funniest Seinfeld episode, and I've forgotten the actor's name, but when I think George had to have an operation and then Kramer said, "No, I've got this guy." Do you when he had to sit under the pyramid and
is that with the herbal person?
Yeah, so great. Just one of the Do you have hot showers? Don't. Remember all that? Do you eat?
Yeah. What made you bring it up? Because of the ding?
The ding, yeah.
Seinfeld is the greatest thing ever. We were talking off air that it's probably been my main inspiration for writing. And you mentioned that you grew up loving comedy. Was Seinfeld one of the big things for you? Absolutely.
I mean, Tuesday night, you had to be...
Tuesdays?
I'm pretty sure it was Tuesday back in the 90s. If you weren't there and you didn't record it on video, you were pretty upset. It was
different times.
You didn't get the pack. Well, you could wait until you get the video pack or the DVD pack, but back then when they first out,
what was the thrill? Do you remember how old were you roughly? Like a kid?
Probably not a kid. Would have been late 20s, I think.
And did it invoke something in you? Because we've never seen comedy quite like that.
The characters were just so well defined, so crazy. The writing was so sharp, and the subject matter was just insanely ordinary but so relatable. And
Yeah.
I'm particularly for our age group, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably 10, 15 years younger than Jerry, I don't know. But so he absolutely spoke to me. And, you know, she wasn't my wife then, but my then girlfriend and I would really, I'd have to work. So you'd have to, if I was an opera singer at that stage. So we didn't sing 8 shows a week. Opera's a little bit different to musical theatre.
Yep.
So we may do 3 or 4 operas a week, and you'd hope you get the Tuesday night off. Because singing opera is like running a marathon. You can't do.
I've heard.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
And why is that? Because you're
physical.
singing for 3 hours.
The length of singing, the fact that you have to fill a 2,000-seat theatre without a microphone. So it's a very physical act.
Can we just hold on? 3,000, 2,000 people without a microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Because we're working in a living museum, and one of the great, I guess, the visceral effect of singing for the audience and the performer is the fact that there is no barrier, there is no electronic interference. You are hearing the voice in its naked raw form, and that's the artistry and the craft. So not only is it an artistic act, and you're seeing some of the greatest works of art ever written, but it's also incredibly physical. So you have to sing with your whole body, and you have to project into the auditorium.
Are you surprised? Is probably the dumbest question after all the gold you've just said. Are you surprised by my response?
Yeah, well, I assume that people would. Well, I'm not. I don't have to assume that, but that some people are surprised that that's what opera actually is.
And the people at the back can hear you.
Well, hopefully that's the. You know, if the orchestra is well controlled by the conductor and you've done your training and you've worked out how to do it, yeah.
That is remarkable. And you mentioned a marathon. So, how do you feel after a show like that, especially?
Well, you're physically pretty spent. I'm not saying that in musical, because I've done musical theatre as well. You're not either, but
is that because there's more like movement and
there's more movement, more storytelling in musical theatre, using dialogue, and you've got a microphone these days. So you
cheating.
can. Well, they're not cheating, but it is. I mean, some people call it park and bark. Like you actually park and bark in opera. You got to bang. You got to really ground yourself and sing with your full body.
And what's the voice like after?
Well, you're generally pretty tired, but if your technique's okay, you know, the thing about it is you've got to be well trained, well oiled, well rested. You know, you probably wouldn't talk on the day of a performance, or talk little on the day of performance, and warm up and warm down correctly, and
that'd be
hydrate
great.
And.
So if you're having like an argument with your spouse, sorry, I can't
just
talk at
sign
the
language. Lots of.
I'll have
Lots
to
of
talk to
notes.
you when everyone's cooled down. That's a great tactic.
Yep.
But you're not performing today. Oh, yeah, I might be. Yeah.
Yep. At the dress rehearsal. So back to Seinfeld.
Yep.
That, you know, if I wasn't performing on a Tuesday or doing a rehearsal, that was a good moment.
Brilliant. What else? Because we were talking before we got on that you don't regard yourself as a comedian. And I will plead your case when we talk about Colin Lane and what you've been doing, that I believe you're now officially a comedian. But what was about comedy that's...
Well, my dad... So I grew up in Ballarat, and my dad was a fan of comedy, and he was an actor, albeit a pro, you know. Not a pro, I mean an amateur pro-am. He was a very good performer.
Nice.
But he just loved comedy, and I had all these comedy records, everything from, I don't know if you know these people, Shelley Berman, Bob Newhart, Wayne and Schuster, obviously the Goons, Stanley Holloway, just incredible number of these fantastic records that I would play over and over again, and I'd know the routines, and these were probably comedians from the 50s and 60s. And so I grew up on a really healthy diet and the films of the Marx Brothers. Probably, I mean, I was obsessed with the Marx Brothers.
And was music also a strong factor in the family?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, wow, you're a very well-rounded family.
And my dad was also a singer.
Oh.
He used to do all the musical, you know, all the local musicals, and he'd go around singing. Yep. I mean, and I also have Welsh heritage, so there was a very strong singing tradition.
So you
And
were
lots of
born
my
into
cousins.
it.
Yeah, I was born into a relatively musical family. Lots of choir singing and
You did the church choir.
choir, school choir.
At an
early age, yep.
And forced upon you, or you
No.
wanted to do it? Oh,
No.
amazing.
No forced upon me. I mean, I was at school and I joined the church choir as well.
Because I heard you, so sorry for interjecting. I heard that the church choir did something for you. Was you were at peace, or it was very relaxing. I forget the exact words.
Did I?
Yeah, one interview I heard.
Yeah, well, I mean, the singing in a group, I love being in a team. And even though I'm ostensibly a soloist, but I love being in a team and I love singing in harmony. And yeah, being in a church choir, there's something, meditative, church music, liturgical music is absolutely top of the crop, isn't it?
I've only ever seen in the movies and the TV shows
Yeah.
of how it pace when done
Well,
correctly.
I guess in a synagogue, because you have a cantor as well, don't you? That's
It's
different. It's a different. You
And
don't.
also, I'd be speaking to the wrong person.
Oh, right.
But some do, but I wouldn't say I've been blown away by anything.
Yeah, the tradition of the tradition of church singing is, I love it. It feels like it's my song line, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And when we talk about song lines, being with the Indigenous, First Nations, that's their music is part of their song line. And in a way, I think our church music is part of our song line. And some of the greatest artists and composers have written for the church. And they've written it in faith, whether it be Bach, Mozart, I mean, all of these incredible, and going back to Gregorian chants, and we're talking just centuries of
Actually,
incredible music.
Gregorian charts over the.
So for me, it always hits me in the solar plexus and makes me feel connected when I hear that music.
Would you go back and perform? Do you still do
Oh
that?
yeah. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and I still, I do things like carols and it doesn't mean that you feel as though you have to. I don't know. It feels cultural as opposed to and spiritual to a degree as well. So
That's lovely.
feel very blessed to be able to do that music.
And you've also, I'm jumping all over the place, but with the carols, you do, I forget what it's called, so please correct me. But you,
The Holy City, you mean? That,
Yes.
I've been doing that for years and years and years, and I feel a bit embarrassed sometimes. But what's he going to? I get him back and singing the Holy City.
why is it embarrassing?
Well, I guess it's because it's become a bit of a signature for me, but I unintentionally, and I mean, I'm very lucky to do it, and
I think it's great.
it's great. Look, it's a great piece, and I like the idea of what it is, but I also, I had to do a version of it once there was this annual CD called the Maya Christmas record, and they wanted me to they said, you've got to do the Holy City, and I thought, I don't want to do the traditional version, because for me, it should be more kind of for everyone. So because it's about the Holy City, which is Jerusalem, but it's also the seat of all the monotheist faiths. You've got Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all there. So I did the Holy City with a Jewish cantor and Islamic chanting, and obviously it's got the whole kind of Christian overlay as well. So I was happy to do that. But anyway, yes, I'm being very divergent there.
I know that you've achieved a lot in your career. Is it more from like a recognition point of view that you've done so many things which people have heard in the introduction, and that people recognize you for this? Like, what's which I think it's amazing to be recognized for.
To be in the industry for how long I've been into and to still be doing stuff, I'm just happy to do. I'm a project guy. I've never been that person who had that, overriding, vaulting ambition to be. I've just always, I like being. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I don't think you understand how rare that is. In entertainment, for example, and I do this, we all have goals. I want to have the next big TV show, then I'm going to have this movie, then I'm going to do this and do that. But it sounds like you've never been as goal orientated.
Not in a sense. Like I just, whatever I'm actually in, I don't think too far ahead. Never have.
Yeah, that's still very rare, like projecting into the future.
Yeah.
Once I've done this, I'll do this, and then I'll do this. But when you're
Not
in the
really.
moment, you sound very, very rare. I've only met of one person really off the top of my head in the Australian entertainment industry who is kind of similar to that, because it's, fear comes into play. When am I going to work again? What am I going to do next?
Yeah. I'm not saying I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
I do, but I tend to, I've been lucky because I've done something, and then by doing that, something else the next things come on, because if you throw yourself into whatever you're doing, 100%, then hopefully that'll lead.
So good
to
work
the next
leads
thing.
to.
Well, I think so. Yeah, doesn't mean they're all successful either, whatever that is.
Interesting. So is that kind of the mindset that's kept you going forward? Just focus on what you're doing, and then something will. appear?
Pretty much. Yeah.
I like that. It's. So maybe we should backtrack, because you didn't really have aspirations of being in this space, or quite.
Not really. I was a bit of a jock when I was a kid, but I loved music. I just loved doing everything. So I would love to go and kicking the footy, then I'd love going and playing in a band, and then I'd love, I think I wanted to be Robbie Flower when I was younger. He was the great Melbourne wingman. He was my idol.
Interesting.
So music was just always in me anyway. Like it was just a.
And did you know that you were talented and could perform?
I don't know that when I was younger, I just did it, and I loved what am I calling myself? I just love doing so many different things, which is I'm not necessarily a great thing either. So because
I disagree, but yeah.
Well, no, because it meant that I didn't actually focus on one particular discipline.
Yeah.
So, I would, because I remember when I was very young, I learnt the violin just for a very short period of time, but I'd learn the violin, then I'd jump out the door and I'd do that for 20 minutes or whatever, and then I'd go and kick the footy for an hour, and then you know what I mean? I just did too many, I didn't just focus on one thing, and my mind was just always active and up and about.
I feel like that would work, depending on the person, but massively in your favour, getting a well-rounded, unique experience, learning from different things, training.
To a degree, but I was a jack of all trades in a way.
Yeah.
So, because I loved everything. I just, as I said, I loved comedy. I loved classical music. I loved rock music. I loved
footy.
I loved everything I did. And I really loved everything I did. I didn't love anything above anything else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Everything just filled me with joy.
But it sounds
whether
like
it be friends or...
It sounds like you're a puppy dog, and I mean like a Labrador, in the most beautiful, pure way.
I don't know that, but I just... someone had described me like a... Yeah, I have been described as a
lover
dog
of
like
life.
that.
When
love
you do
stuff.
something, you're present, you're in the moment, you love it. I think that's a great way to be.
But it means that you don't actually absolutely excel at anything. So be it,
Well, then things...
Because people who excel at something, like absolutely excel at something, maybe they achieve... I'm in awe of humanity and people who... for instance, you just get up in a plane and you're flying in this plane, you think, who is the guy that actually invented this?
Yeah.
How did they do it? How did we arrive at this? These people are so incredibly clever. I feel so stupid. I'm just sitting in this chair in the sky and someone actually built this. And he's made of the same stuff as me, just star stuff. You know what I mean?
I love it. Yeah.
Just randomly thrown bits of matter turned into a human being. And he's made this thing that I'm flying in the sky in a chair.
I could just imagine, there's turbulence, there's a crying baby, and you're just sitting there like upright with your fingers, index finger to thumb, like meditating, like how good is it to be alive? You know what I just...
Well, no, I used to be a pretty nervous flyer. That stopped me from doing a lot of work, but I'm pretty good now.
Okay, I'll pigeonhole that.
Mm-hmm.
I always hate whenever someone goes up to you. This is like my Seinfeld pet peeve. How was the flight? Was it was there a lot of turbulence? Like, I was on a plane. I got to Queensland in 2 hours. Shouldn't that be the thing we focus on? Everyone's like, oh, the flight was so bad.
Yeah. The delay.
Look, the delay I get, but the 5 seconds of bad turbulence, we knew we were going to be okay because we already landed, and that's what people focus on.
It's incredible, isn't it? How... anyway,
we'll come back to the nervous flyer, but tying up being the jack of all trades, master of none, which I still disagree with. I've got two questions. Did you think that you could be a professional sportsman, or?
Oh, maybe when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't really. I think I just had a very vivid imagination. I'd pretend I was the guy already.
Oh, I love that. And
so I would. Particularly when I was a lot younger, I'd play and back in the 60s, early 70s, not a lot of footy on television in Ballarat. We get half an hour of the highlights. No, you didn't get the whole game. So I would listen to the radio and I would visualize myself playing. And life was different. You didn't have the game on your phone. You might see, particularly my team, Melbourne, who weren't doing very well back then, you might see 15 or 20 minutes of them every couple of weeks, if that.
That's why. Why just 15 and not show the whole game?
They don't, because they'd have highlights that back then they didn't do that. They didn't have live games. They just had replays, and generally they were replays of the most successful teams at that point in time.
I would have thought footy would be very popular in Ballarat.
It was incredibly popular.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
You shouldn't have gone for the D. You should have gone for a powerhouse like the Essendon Football Club, but maybe.
Well, even back then they were.
All I'm hearing is they were really good. Thank you. And so when does this is really interesting to me. You wrote a rock opera version of Macbeth. Where were you in life, and why did you decide to do this?
Well, I was at university, and like you, I was actually studying commerce and ideas of also doing law and at Melbourne Uni, and it wasn't really fitting.
Was it put upon you? Or
not necessarily put upon me, but I was, you get the marks, you go to Melbourne Uni.
Yeah,
that's what it was like back then, to a degree. And I was more a self-taught musician I didn't have serious lessons because I was doing it by myself.
Nice.
Literally self-taught. And I remember because I was playing the piano and my dad, I came home and I said, oh, look, I don't think I've got time to do piano. I had like a year of piano lessons because I've just had so much on.
It sounds like.
And my dad said to my mum, oh, look, don't worry about it because he can sing, which I thought was a really weird thing to do. Because I had 4 sisters and they were all made to learn 2 instruments. So they all learned the piano and another instrument. Whereas for me, apparently, because they heard me sing and I was doing stuff, Dad was going, oh, don't worry, he's doing all the sport and he's finding and he can sing.
So did your dad think it was the gold mine, being able to, or he thought that?
No, just as in he doesn't need it, hopefully he'll go and be do his commerce or be a lawyer or, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up at Melbourne Uni and I was writing songs a lot because I was in rock bands at school. And I also liked music theatre to a degree.
Yep.
And rock and music theatre back then was quite big. Superstar had happened, the whole Lloyd Webber thing. And I just came up with this idea I studied Macbeth and I really liked it. I thought it was really dramatic.
That's crazy.
I just thought it'd be a good subject matter for a rock opera, and
so just like
away I went.
The idea, and you just wrote it and
started down that path. And I was at uni, and I'd left uni because I said it wasn't for me, and I was also a bit sick at the time. But anyways, yeah. So I wrote this whole rock opera. Yep, 2 hours of music sung through, and a friend of mine helped me write the lyrics, Graham Hodge in Ballarat, and because I was also in a band with him, and that's how that happened.
I don't think you understand how interesting that is, going through one path, and I know you said that you're a bit sick. Actually, I have a quote on you. Being sick gave you the courage to pursue music. You don't need to dive into it if you want to, what was going on, but the courage is a really
probably,
interesting word.
Yeah, because you're faced with a kind of life, well, it really was a fork in the road, and you think, I think I'll just do what I want to do. I've lived a pretty good life. I might as well just finish doing what I want to do. Who knows how long I've got. So, in a way, yes, it did give me the courage because I was from a pretty conservative family background and I was a good boy.
That's very, but, still fears can come into play. We've got societal pressures, whether it's family or environment, whatever, and I thought I had to be an accountant, and to look elsewhere was kind of seen in my mind as, you can't do it. This is your life. You get the wife, the kids, the house, all of that. And so I'm not sure what was going on with your environment at the time, but it's still very scary, even going through something like that, very scary to say, you know what, I'm going to live the life that I want. That's scary, even to have that conversation. Most people don't. Most people want to live that life, but and there's no judgment whatsoever.
Well, I was pretty young when I went to uni as well because I only just turned 17. So I think that's far too young.
Yeah.
So I wasn't probably fully formed. And as I said, I think I had a kind of big imagination world. I was a bit Walter Mitty. I really loved, I used to live in my own world quite a lot, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I was happy with my own company, just imagining things. And
that's also rare, but that's probably...
Well, not, I had a lot of friends and I really enjoyed that. But
yeah.
I was very comfortable just with a piano, just hours on end, just being by myself and creating stuff.
Brilliant. That's the aspiration. So when you write this Macbeth play, how do you then get it out there? I know someone...
Well, I recorded onto multi-track. So it was for orchestra and rock band and what have you. So I just did all the instruments myself. I got a 4-track recorder and recorded it all, and then did all the voices as well, plus with Graham, my lyricist. So we had like this 2 hours of music, which I played the drums, I had the synths, I had pianos, took forever. I mean, back then, now with a synthesizer and a computer, it's a lot easier. But back then, I had to set up a drum booth and a drum kit, and play all the instruments myself. So it was quite a task back then. And then I kind of hawked it around, and I've forgotten how I ended up. The Victorian Arts Centre had just opened. And I've forgotten who, or someone might have said, maybe from Ballarat. Or maybe I was I was actually at uni. I just finished uni. But anyway, I went to the Arts Centre and gave them this cassette, and they listened to it and they said, we're really interested, which was amazing. And then so we did what's called a backers audition because they didn't have all the money.
What's a backers?
A backers audition is where so the Arts Centre just opened, so just on the stage at the State Theatre. In fact, I'm not even sure whether the actual theatre had opened. But anyway, I was on the actual stage and they invited potential producers to come and listen. So that's how I basically got into the industry.
And did they, I might be getting the timeline wrong, but was the first opportunity to be an understudy?
Yeah, so that kind of came from that because, I had done a little bit of singing, like I was in a band. And in Ballarat, I'd done a bit of telly. I know it sounds weird. And I think I might have even done... Anyway, I think I'd done telly on Channel 9, just as a singer. But I wasn't a singer. I was a singer, but I wasn't a budding singer then. It was just something... I didn't think about being a performer, really. I wanted to be in either kind of bit more of a rock guy, or because I was on there as a soloist, or then I thought, no, I just want to be a composer and be in the background.
Yeah,
I had no ambition to be a real singer. And then at this backers audition, there was the Victoria State Opera, or one of the potential producers, and they said, we like your composition, we like the rock opera, we're going to put money into it, but we think you're a singer and we'd like you to come and sing with us. And I said, no, I'm not interested. And then they rang me back and said, look, we're doing this new version of The Pirates of Penzance, Gilbert and Sullivan. I said, no, that sounds daggy, not for me. And then they rang again and said, look, we really think you'd be good. We want you to come and understudy the main role.
Playing hard to get.
I wasn't playing. I just didn't think it was for me.
Yeah.
And then they said it'd be really good for your composition and just come and do the summer tour. So they convinced me, and that's how really my career started. So I understudied the role of Frederic, and the show had people like John English, June Bronhill. It was Marina Prior's first show, and Simon Gallagher was playing Frederic, the tenor role, and that's the one I understudied. And I went on, and the producers, the head of the opera company saw me and said, yeah, I did. You've done a good job. You should be an opera singer. And that's how it kind of started. I was doing that in conjunction with writing, and I was seeing it just as a means to an end.
Yep.
So I was saying, I felt like an accidental tourist using my voice to be a performer whilst I was doing the other thing, writing.
You do know that this is wild. You write this Macbeth rock opera.
Yeah.
You're not sure where to go. I don't know how you find these opportunities or even know where to send, because there's no Google, but you're obviously sending it out to people. You've somehow been on TV. Yep. You're just kind of living in your bliss. Then you get this.
I don't know if I'm living my bliss, but I'm.
Well, it just sounds like you're living like a purposeful life, and you're just going. You're honoring like your intuition, or there's a spark or a fire. You just anyway. And then all of these things are happening, and then you get this opportunity, and you're like, nah, I'm all good. And then they convince you. You know, that's remarkable. That is so rare.
Look, and I'm not saying I'm proud of it either, and because a lot of opera singing is hard.
Yeah.
And people, have, as I've said before, they have that vaulting ambition to be, I've got to sing on the opera house by I'm this age, and I've got to do that role, and I've studied at the conservatorium, and I had none of that. And I'm not saying I'm proud of it.
But it can also...
But I had to work hard once I got in there.
Yeah.
Really hard. I mean, I had a natural voice to a degree, but that doesn't guarantee anything, and it doesn't make you a singer. It's hard work. It's a lot of training, a lot of study.
What springs to mind is I had this lady on, and she's an actor, and she was enjoying it, but she wasn't living her purpose. And then she found a Hallmark. I'm not sure if you know what Hallmark is, but she was doing a bunch of Hallmark movies, and that changed her career because she was doing various different roles, but once she was put in this bracket of Hallmark, it just lifted her up.
Wow.
And she never wanted to be an actor, kind of like similar to what you're saying. And then, it was kind of put upon her because she was obviously good. And then she found her avenue, and she's excelled ever since, and it just lights her up. It sounds very similar to you. But you two are the only people I've ever spoken to where it's almost like an accidental artist in that sense.
To a degree, I guess I am.
In the opera side as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That was... I didn't really, interestingly, because I hadn't really been to the opera, music theatre was more, I think, but I love classical music, and I had a great love of classical music. But I hadn't been to the opera, and I heard that...
So did you know what it was?
Of course I knew what it was. And, Pavarotti was just on his rise back then as well. But I heard that someone else had written a Macbeth, this guy called Verdi. I was like, are you kidding? Someone else has written Macbeth? And the first opera I went to see was Verdi's Macbeth by the Australian Opera at the Princess Theatre. I said, I think my witches are better than his. Verdi's just one of the greatest composers.
Send yours and say, I've got a few notes for you.
But that was an incredible experience as well. But yes, so literally fall into it.
And so then you realise, and I heard that I'm not sure if nervous is the right word, but you accept it and your life changes in that regard. And then you mentioned you work very hard. What does that look like? I know you have to learn the languages because there's Latin, Italian.
Yeah, Italian, French, German. There's so many different languages. But it's also you have to learn how to sing properly, the technique.
Yep. Because
it's different than, as I said before, singing rock or singing musical theatre. You have to learn how to project your voice and sing with what we call bel canto style, which is beautiful singing with long legato lines, and you have to learn all the repertoire. And it's a huge learning curve. I mean, although some of the best singers have just been instinctive singers, but then they've worked hard to get to the next level. But it is, it's a very, very complex art form.
But good on you for embracing that challenge. Fear.
But I was also lucky because I had people helping me and mentoring me. But you got to do the work.
Still, it could be overwhelming, and if you didn't have a good work ethic, or you could be lazy, maybe you can do it for a little while, then you wouldn't be able to do it as long as you. Obviously, there was that drive or something kicked in where you're like, I'm actually one.
Well, I mean, like a lot of people, you don't go through your career without blips either.
Yeah.
But, and I was constantly, and still to this day, trying to work out how to sing properly. No, I kid you not. It's an ever evolving, because your body's ever changing.
Gotcha.
Your throat, you're structurally you're changing, and probably emotionally you're changing. Everything keeps changing, so you've got to keep adapting and evolving as a performer. But hopefully a technique that you learned early on helps. And I probably suffered from trying to learn a technique, but just singing naturally. Yep. So I've had blips along the way where they're going, oh, geez, I'm in trouble here, and then working it out and getting back up again. And
from a technique
point of view, yep. And also, you got to sing within what your voice is. I mean, everyone's voice is different. I'm not a huge Wagnerian dramatic tenor. I'm what we call a light lyric tenor. And sometimes, you get pushed into an area where you're not meant to be, which is like, square peg, round hole. And you go, I'm sure I can get in there.
Yeah.
And then that affects you a little bit. And opera singers or singers in general know exactly what I'm talking about. And, when youth's on your side, you can do anything. So probably for singers up till about their mid-30s, you can just get away with the muscular technique of what I call cultivated yelling, which is what opera is.
Yelling.
Well, it is. It's like we're basically yelling.
Yep.
But in a really cultivated artistic way. So probably mid-30s, late 30s, your voice, your muscles start to change, and they don't support your vocal folds like they used to. You lose the suppleness, and unless you've worked out how to sing, I mean, there's been a lot of singers who've, burnt out by the time they're in their late 30s, early 40s for that reason.
There's so many points here, but one that springs to mind.
I'm probably talking too much.
No. You're doing great. You're doing my job for me. From like acting or comedy, for example, so many people have spoken about how they feel they need to be someone else. They need to be Jerry Seinfeld. They need to emulate his performance, and they feel that's what you need to be successful. You kind of insinuated that you felt you had to be a certain way, and then you kind of changed. Or did I mishear that?
Interesting. No, I've never have to be someone else.
Or emulate a certain performance.
For me, the best performers are those that I feel are being them.
Exactly.
I don't like The Mask as much. I'm not a fan of The Mask.
Interesting.
And I really like performers and actors that you feel as though they're giving a bit of them, even though they're playing a character.
Yep.
Yes. So for me,
so was it like that straight away, or did you learn to bring more of you, or that's always something you?
I'm still learning. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not an actor. I'm an actor to a degree.
Yeah.
But it's something I still really. I think great acting is fantastic. Great comedy, great comedians are fantastic. I don't think I'm one of those.
We'll agree to disagree again.
But yeah, so to be someone else, don't know about that.
No, I agree. It's because it's very interesting when people, open mic comedians, and I'm not comparing you to an open mic comedian, they're throwing things at the wall. They're still bringing themselves, but they feel that they have to, Ricky Gervais is successful in that way, so I need to, and you can still take the best from
They're
people.
trying to emulate him.
They're trying to emulate, or whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels that that's very common kind of in the acting and comedy world.
But I think that's how you find yourself, because you are inspired by those people.
Exactly.
Sure. And I think probably to begin with, you've got to emulate in some respect to find who you are.
Yep.
Everyone, I think, copies from everyone.
Yep. I agree.
I mean, we're all influenced. It's like, same with the composer. I mean, there's only 12 notes in a scale. So as a composer, you're always influenced by someone you love and you kind of do a version of to begin with, and then you find your own voice.
It is I love hearing this story. And it feels like not only is this an artist's journey, but it's a self-awareness journey. You're learning so much about yourself, your body, how you project yourself. So that's also really exciting. The reason I also like writing is, although I'm writing a sci-fi film that's not, inverted commas, real, I'm learning so much about myself. And I think it's, as an accountant, I would have never necessarily have experienced in that way. There's this, I can't put it to words, this experience where I'm growing with the art form as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you've got that the whole way through, like you're learning and growing, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And I think that's so exciting as well. Yeah.
No, I'd agree with that. I think that, that's just maturation, that's growing up in society, and everyone has their own path, own odyssey, and you arrive at different stations at different times, all depending on your environment, your background, your family, who you are. I think I'm from a family which is more like people pleasers as well, so that's probably been one of my...
you're speaking to one.
So when I was in the opera company, I was trying to please people. So I was doing my own thing, but I was trying to please people,
But at the cost of your performance or more from your personality?
Probably sometimes. Yeah, probably sometimes. But on the other hand, that's just maturation again. You know what I mean? We all grow up in different stages.
It's a hard one to shed. There's any moments, or as you said, just experience age?
I think this experience age, yeah. And also coming in without love's not the right word, but without the background and the teaching and the literally coming in blind. I mean, I remember for instance, if you were a young singer going through the conservatorium or learning from a teacher, a proper classical opera teacher, you would have sung Mozart repertoire. You would have sung Puccini or Verdi or whatever, or done Schubert songs and Lieder. And I did my first full Mozart opera without ever having sung a Mozart aria. So that was I was thrown into the deep end, so to speak.
And going back to what we said before, that realizing that you needed to grow very quickly, and you gave the examples as well, but learning the languages, as we said, can you speak these languages?
Yeah, I hadn't. I mean, I had a bit of schoolboy French and schoolboy German, but no, I didn't have a language, and Italian was the prime language of opera. So one of the first things I did when I was given because I never did any singing competitions. A lot of people went through, particularly in classical music, the singing competition was always the thing. I hadn't done any of that. Yep. And people who did singing competitions literally got money to go and study, generally overseas. So the first time I was actually given anything, apart from being a little bit of a young artist at the Victoria State Opera, was by Joan Sutherland and Richard Bonning, and they gave me a scholarship which allowed me to go overseas to study. And the first thing I did was go and study language.
And
and that was fantastic, because obviously if you're going to sing these things, you better understand what you're singing about and better do it in the right accent. And so I spent, a lot of time studying these languages. I studied French, but I went to Paris and studied French properly, and I did the same. I went to Florence and studied Italian, and they were very heady times. And it was very, to immerse yourself in the culture obviously helps tell the story better.
You do know that's very rare. So
no, that's not rare. I mean, for opera singers, a lot of people would do that, and I think they would. And I think today it's a lot easier as well. Because getting overseas and getting the support is...
I will still challenge you that it is very rare. It might not be as rare in the opera space, but as you said, you weren't an opera singer at that stage.
No.
So learning a new culture, learning a language... I'm not sure if you travelled much in your life. You're still young.
I hadn't. I was still young. In fact, I think it might have been the first time I went overseas. It was.
So all of these things are, inverted commas, might not be working in your favor per se, but you flicked a switch and you embraced it. I think that's remarkable. You want to do this for, you want to have longevity and you want to be successful, and you embrace yourself in different cultures, learn a language. Also,
I had no idea what was happening in the future. I did it because the opportunity was there, and what have I got to do this next thing? I've got to do this. You're at the opera company about to do these operas in another language, and the music was just fantastic. So it wasn't like I didn't want to do it. Yeah. Once it opened up, I went, this is ridiculous. Who am I kidding? These guys that wrote these incredible works of art, it was a privilege to do them. It was a privilege to do them. I mean, there seemed to have been a period of incredible creativity where, like someone had invented the airplane. In terms of classical music, I don't think it's ever been any better than that period between, say, Bach and Puccini and Verdi. I mean, I don't know what happened, but something was in the water during this period for Western classical music anyway.
Yeah. So you go there, you embrace yourself in the culture, but also I have a quote from you, and it means a few things to me. It's easy to get applause to a degree, but it's harder to touch someone, to be that kind of brave. And that goes in how I've also interpreted it. There's multiple layers. Is that learning the language, not just to learn the language to sing, but to actually understand what you're singing, that passion. I think that's rare. I know you're saying everyone else might do it, but to go to that level, to actually have a moving performance, understand what you're doing, I think that is beautiful. I think it's the most beautiful thing that one can do, to actually do that. So can you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, I guess, you can go out and sing a high note, and it just seems to be even more and more these days. People just go out and sing high notes and people start clapping.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yep.
But I've thought that even before these singing competitions and the way that happens now these days.
Yep.
So that, it seems to me that's almost, I'm not saying that they're not talented or great, because they're obviously great singers and great voices, but I don't know what the audience are doing. They're just clapping when you sing a high note. So it's actually more fulfilling for both audience and performer when there's more depth of meaning about what the performance is, as opposed to just making sure you get those moments right. So I guess that's what I was saying when I said that back then.
But you can also be, inverted commas, selfish, like some stand-up comedians, and everyone's got a different relationship. I have no idea whatever mindset works best for the one person, but it can all be all about you individually. And that's also very important. But you're going to that extra, or at least how I see it, that extra layer. You want to move someone. You want to feel. To me, that's healing. And healing has a different definition for everyone, but that's what like connects us. That's like the most beautiful feeling in the world. You are there like fully in your power, expressing the words, but bringing yourself to it. That is beautiful. And we don't see that too much. Maybe in your world, but that is, I know you.
Well, I really like when you get a generosity of spirit and the vulnerability of a performance. And I think there is a kind of brave quality about people that perform like that. I think so. I find that the most fulfilling as a punter as well. When I said that, and I like people. You can tell they're being generous with their fellow artists on stage as well. That's.
I like the word generosity of spirit.
Yeah,
that is such a beautiful word. But when you see a performance, and maybe you feel an emotion, you're experiencing something that words don't quite have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they can't express. Words can't express those kind of things. Yes.
Beautiful. So then, when you're first traveling, let's say to Italy or France, what does your life look like? Are you able to work there, or do you have like Are you getting money to study? Like, how do you like live? And
well, because I've been performing, so I've had I've got money to go away. And as I say, I was given a scholarship to go and study, which was the first time I was ever being given money to do that kind of thing. Yeah. And, I had money from working. So simple as that.
And how long are you doing these? Are you with
like with the Italian thing, it'd be 3 to 6 months. And then you maybe come back and do a show, then go back over. And so it was that kind of period.
Did you ever consider living in Italy? Because
Look, there was, yes, and I had a lot of my colleagues did the whole international thing a lot, and I chose more to do it in Australia. I mean, I've done work overseas as well, but I liked working here, and I had a family, and so it was more for me. Yes, yes, the idea was appealing, but I didn't fully embrace it. To get on the opposite.
Was it close or just?
Yeah, it was close. Mm-hmm.
And was it as you said, family? Could you have moved the family?
Yeah, could have moved the family thing. So many contracts which I let go. I remember one company in Tel Aviv, the Tel Aviv opera company.
To Israel.
Well, they said when I said, "Oh, look, I'm about to, my wife's expecting, so I'm going to pull out of this contract." Said, "If you don't come and do it, you'll never work here again." I'm kidding. Why?
Oh, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
So how did you get out of that one?
Well, I didn't. I just said, "Well, I'm staying for the birth of my child."
So were they going to ban you from Israel or more?
Well, no, just the opera company.
Yeah, but that
was
they
fine.
Might have ties of other places as well.
No, that was fine. But they were pretty upset because I think it might have been a Bohème, I think.
What's a Bohème?
Well, it's a Puccini opera, and it was quite a. I was a bit of a Rodolfo. The Rodolfo was the main role, and kind of fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, but there's also a way to have these conversations. Reading between the lines, you can be like, "Look, we hear you. This is where we're at. Maybe we've invested. Not you'll never work again." That's so pathetic.
It was a little like that, though.
So. Wow.
Anyway, but yes, look, immersing myself in those places was fantastic, and it did make a difference to the way I felt as though you sing by having the language at your fingertips a little better.
Controversial question: what is the best language for opera?
Oh, it's got to be Italian, from my perspective. Nothing wrong with German or French. I mean, I have a particular love of singing French opera as well, but no, Italian's it's the most pure language. You got 5 pure vowels, A, E, O, U, and it just sings beautifully. Yes, that's the birthplace of opera. The Italians, beautiful, open sound.
Have you gone to Italy many times?
Yes, I love Italy, and there's just something the way they produce their voice is just really open and joyous and sunny.
It sounds like you're going to have to retire there.
No, I don't know that.
We had, as I said, Colin Lane, who will talk about your show in a little bit. He talks about kind of like that what if sliding door moment where I think he was offered a potential opportunity to move to the UK.
Yep.
And he thinks about like, should he have made that? I already told him.
I remember that. Yep.
I already explained to him that he made the right decision because he made the right decision. But, sometimes I think it would come up where he's like, what would my life look like there? Do you ever play those mind games or you've made your decision?
I try not to, and I do have them because I was a bit of a fork in the road moment. It would have been in the mid-90s. A lot of contracts in Los Angeles, in Europe, and I was just at a point in time where I thought maybe opera's not for me. I mean, I've had a couple of those. I've had a couple of forks in the road where I've thought, no, this isn't for me. One was when I've been doing opera for about 5 years. I was maybe five years, I think. And I was offered to go and do a musical called Chess. And I went to the then incumbent artistic director of Opera Australia. Yeah. And I said, look, I think I'm going to go and don't know whether opera's for me, Moffat. His name is Moffat Oxenbould, who's a good friend of mine now. But he was the artistic director of the Australian Opera. And I said, I don't think it's for me. And he said, well, look, we're thinking of doing this new production with this guy of La Bohème, which was I've just talked about before. And we'd like you to do the role of Rodolfo, which I'd kind of done on a country tour. I thought, no, maybe it's not for me. He said, well, why don't you go and have a chat with, as you just said, Baz Luhrmann, and Baz and I kind of had similar ideas about how to do it, or just about theatre or about life back then.
That's exciting.
So I did that Bohème, so I still did opera for the next whatever years it was, because that went pretty well. And as I was saying, and then about 4 or 5 years, or maybe 5 or 6 years after that, I came to another fork in the road where there were lots of contracts overseas, and I thought, I've got to go back and compose. I just had this
like
itch. And David Hirschfelder, who is a very good friend of mine, who's a composer, we went to school together and played in bands together, and he was doing a film, because he was a film composer at that stage. In fact, I introduced David to Baz Luhrmann. He ended up doing Strictly Ballroom.
Oh,
That's
nice.
how he did it.
Yeah.
But David and I talked about doing some writing together. So I said no to opera for about 2 years and went and composed.
I want to go through each one, because it's very rare. You've done opera, you're thriving, you're doing well, and then before Baz convinced you, I actually want to hear about this because it's exciting. Where were you? Was it just you? What were you feeling at that stage?
Which stage?
The Baz story.
Oh, right. I just thought that opera maybe wasn't for me.
And why was that?
I felt as though maybe it wasn't my tribe, and that maybe I wasn't the wrong voice type, And I'm not saying I didn't like the people, but it just something wasn't quite fitting.
Tribe's a beautiful word and very important. You can still get along with people, but when you find your people, as you probably know better than anyone else, when you find your people that you connect to on a higher level, that elevates.
Could be a lower level.
But it elevates you, and I want to hear about. It's a very.
But you see, I love opera. I love the music. I love it. Yeah, but
not everyone you're going to work with is going to be in alignment.
And I do love it. But yeah.
So going back to the tribe aspect, I know that when you meet, and I think it's really important because you can still work with good people and do great work, but there's just something, when I've met the right people, whether it's improv or I've done screenwriting or had friends work with my screenwriting, it elevates the performance. So you weren't quite. You're still doing well, but it was just something was lacking. You meet Baz and you connect, obviously, on a higher level for you. What changes? How does he turn that no into a yes?
Oh, well, I guess it was more about not just what we call parking and barking. Actually, he used to say the word club opera. It was about trying to tell the story in a bit more, without wanting to sound too wanky, just be a little bit more genuine with the text.
Yeah.
Because maybe go back and just see what exactly the words were saying, and let's just play it moment by moment, and not what the audience really expects, but perhaps just what the text is saying. That doesn't mean it's going to be revolutionary. It's just tell it in a more genuine way for you, as opposed to what's the antecedent, what precedent, what are they expecting? They're expecting that, you to do this here and to do that. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to come out and have burning embryos on sticks and,
No, I get that. But
not quite that, but just go back to the text and tell the story moment by moment, as opposed to whatever the tradition is. So you go back to Puccini. These are the words. This is the music. What happens here? We'll just play it moment by moment. And that was...
So is it like this switch? Because obviously to say no and then to get a yes from a meeting or an encounter or whatever it was, that's pretty profound.
Yeah, I mean, I did know Baz anyway because had just done something. Where is it? Anyway, I'd met him before.
Yeah.
We had a good discussion, and I thought, this is worth doing. And we were younger. We were known as it was known as the baby Bohème because we were all quite young and maybe not. It wasn't like I was going to be this big dramatic tenor. We were telling it more in a youthful way, which is what the opera is about.
Nice.
And it ended up being very successful, so that was fine.
But it's still
and it was young, and it had friends that I had already worked with. friends from Ballarat who I used to sing with, Roger and David Lemke, who are brothers, and Cheryl Barker and Christine Douglas. So we were all kind of a similar age and mindset. So that worked. My God, it's like back in 1989, 90. So it's a long time ago now, but it was quite revolutionary back then. And the design was very vivid. It was almost like a movie as opposed to, it was Catherine Martin, who's Baz's wife and designer, had done this fantastically kind of newish concept. It was more like a movie. Like it was all kind of dull and black and white, and yet the main people were in colours. So it had a very, very...
Very unique.
Yeah, it was a very cool look.
And so what did that do for your soul? Did it bring like an extra spark into opera, or was it more about surrounding yourself with the right people, or more doing projects that kind of...
It was a project, and it was a really lovely project. But it did kind of, on the operatic sense, because it became a pretty important production for the opera company, and it was the first time they'd ever done a DVD.
Oh.
And it was broadcast worldwide, so it had all those kind of implications. I was a bit, it was kind of hot back then.
I'm glad that you had that experience. So then you spoke about your second example of where...
Yeah, well, I'd just done so I was kind of catapulted a little bit by this. So writing on that way for 4 or 5 years, and I was working in San Francisco and all around the shop, and I was starting to feel a little bit, oh God, and I was given a role that maybe was a bit beyond me. It was a new thing called the Eighth Wonder, and
what is
the Eighth Wonder? I was playing the role of Jorn Utzon, who designed the opera house. It was an opera about the building of the opera house, and we did it in the opera house. So it was
very meta.
It was very, yeah. And I was meant to do the ingenue, the Juve lead, and then it was decided that I would do the main role, or the major protagonist, Utzon. And it was probably, the orchestration was a bit loud, and it kind of pushed me into an area which was not great.
What does that mean?
Well, the orchestration was huge, and vocally, my voice wasn't quite big enough for it at the time. And so I was pushing my voice probably beyond what as opposed to being, as I was saying, more, I'm not a big dramatic tenor, I'm more a lyric tenor. Yep. This was probably slightly more dramatic. So it kind of made me, oh God, I went, geez, really? Maybe this isn't for me again. Maybe I'll just go and write music again. So that was a moment.
Was that Sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
Was that an important lesson for you to
realize? Oh, yeah. So that was a good thing to happen, albeit it was probably negative as well.
Yeah, but we can learn.
Yeah, you learn from it.
Yep.
And then you go back and you think, and you listen to it, actually it wasn't as bad as I thought, but it was at the time, in the moment, yeah.
So you can go as deep as you want. What made it, was it uncomfortable that you felt that you were competing kind of with the
orchestra?
Yeah, and then obviously the physical impact, as well as probably mental.
Yeah. And also there I was being a people pleaser as well. I should do it. I should have pulled out. But
voicing concerns, can you do that, or was it too late in that type of thing?
Probably column A, column B.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was in still learning. And I'm still learning.
Very, very. I cut you off before. You were saying that you should have done something in regards to not just the people pleasing. So you look back at an experience like that, although it was negative, you learned, it probably gave you more personal power, independence, realize what is actually going to work for you, not work for you.
Maybe, but then again, probably because, and this is what I was talking about, the fact of being a jack of all trades and not master of none. Now, if I was a master of that trade, I would have made different decisions more quickly.
Gotcha.
But because I was more a project-to-project kind of type of person, immersing myself and then trying to please people as well, perhaps that was not a great thing. But, you only get to that position because you've done things before that have led you to that moment. I didn't just arrive there. I had gone through a set of different situations and, albeit being good at one thing and then you go to another thing. Whereas if I'd probably been just the master of opera, I would have probably crafted the career differently. Does that make sense?
Yes. I still think you're a master in these areas as well. Not many people can do all of those things that you can do.
You're not the opera guru over there, but that's, that's fine.
But is that from a...
But look, it's fine. But for me, it's fine. And I'm still being true to myself. So
nice. That's all that matters.
Whoever that is. Whoever I am, that's what I was and that's who I am now.
How much of it is what you think, whereas what other people are saying to you? Because in that, for example, are they saying you're not projecting your voice enough, you're not doing this? Or is it more you just, you're...
No, both, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, no, not necessarily some of the critics would have said that, yeah.
External critics or the ones within your circle? Like the ones, the producers or the directors, whoever they are? No,
less the producers, more the... Yeah.
Oh, but the external
But also I was probably... I was rife for someone to have a shot at me. If that makes sense.
Can you expand?
Well, I was doing okay, and so it'd be good to bring him down a bit.
So how did you deal with the negative?
That's tough.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not going to lie, that's tough.
Do you read them? Are you aware of them?
Some. Yep.
Do you have them plastered at the back?
No. Oh, you're blanking my mind?
Oh, no. I meant like literally on the wall, but
no.
Sure.
God, no.
There's plenty of people that do.
Yeah. Oh, really? What, the bad ones?
Yeah, and they have it. That's not my style, but...
No, I haven't done that.
But it sounds like the best revenge is success. So is that the mentality or it depends?
Yeah, it's like attrition. You just bear with it and you get on with it. I think you wear it and you get on with it. I mean, in the great scheme of things, it doesn't mean that much.
Exactly.
Eventually.
And have you ever been motivated from a negative comment to change your something? Or
you mean from an external critic?
Yeah.
No.
That's my point.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Or maybe there can be like small shifts, but generally they're not normally constructive. I'm all for constructive feedback, not David didn't do this well or this is, I mean,
look, it's a profession which...
A lot of eyes.
Sorry?
A lot of eyeballs, a lot of people watching.
So you got to take that.
And do you take the positive feedback?
No.
And why is that?
Well, positive or negative, you mean?
Oh.
Like sometimes people are being too effusive and some people can be overly negative. So you can't have one without the other.
That is also, I feel like, a long journey as well, because a lot of people, they could think, and this is what I'm trying to gather. You don't have an ego. Obviously, we've all got egos. You've got a very tame. You're aware of your ego. A lot of people who have accomplished what you've done, and with the highs and lows, they could really spiral out of control. But it sounds like, given everything that we've spoken about, you're pretty in touch with yourself and you're able to navigate that. You're able to, if things don't go to plan, you can learn. You might not like it in the moment. You can sulk, but you feel it and you move on. Am I hearing that correctly?
To a degree. It doesn't mean I wasn't hurt by stuff.
Of course.
But you got to move on. And you get on, you go. You keep going. Because that's what you do. You love and you love it and you got to do it. I don't know.
It's a good mindset.
I mean, and critics, they got a job to do. Mind you, I don't know many people who were young and wanted to grow up to be a critic.
That's true. Have you ever met a critic that's given you a bad review that you felt was not correct?
I'm trying to think. No, I tend not to come across many critics.
Or they avoid you?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting. But, that's fine. It's fine. But it's kind of interesting because you read reviews and you think, was I at the same show?
Interesting.
No, just generally.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's kind of such a subjective...
We had a guest very recently, and very long story short, this was a show where he talks about his dad and the learnings from there and the regrets his dad had, and then his dad had, I don't know if it was terminal cancer, but And he brought his dad up on stage, and the reviewer said, I would have given him more stars, but he brought his dad up on stage, whereas everyone was clapping, like it was very emotional. And he felt personally attacked, if that's the right way of saying it, because he got punished for doing something he thought was very healing, and this person took obviously maybe triggered by their dad or whatever it is, and, lost a star or two or whatever it is. And so, people come through their own biases and they don't quite know the ins and outs, and
yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you do, I guess they have a function and they are a conduit to a degree between you and a potential audience sometimes, but probably less so these days, I think. I don't know whether critics are as, are they as well read as they used to be?
I don't personally look at them
I tend to not these days either.
No, I don't think it would influence my decision.
No.
Especially from the comedy point of view, this is probably a topic for another time, but if you can quote a comedian word for word, they don't translate well. And I've learned very early on that if someone doesn't like that comedian and you see it in writing, that perhaps there's personal biases. Maybe the comedian wasn't well-intentioned, but I realized we need to look beyond kind of like a clickbait on all sides. So I will give it more of a go. I think that's a topic for another time. But
it's a big topic.
Yeah. I just want to tie up the contract stuff. I think we spoke about it, but I briefly gave you an example where I was about to sign a contract with a production company, and that took 6 months. I'm sure, hopefully it doesn't take as long with you. And going through that process of working with potential people that weren't in alignment with, let's say, the writing, my personality, higher, bigger picture stuff, I kind of lost the joy because that experience was so horrible. But very long story short, and I've spoken a little bit about it on this podcast, I'm much better for that experience and realize it's important who I work with. It's important that we're in alignment. Doesn't mean we need to agree on everything, but it just means, we're there to create the best product that we can, egos to the side, all of that stuff. And I did lose joy for writing, but after really looking deep within, I realized, this is actually what I want to do. So it actually gave me more purpose long term. So you mentioned that you had a bit of, I don't know what the right words were, but there were a few things happening with contracts over the years, and it kind of maybe potentially took away the joy from you. Did you have any, not just the Tel Aviv one, but you said there were a lot of contracts, whether it's from San Francisco or somewhere else. Have you ever been bogged down by that side of,
Not really. I mean, I've had good management.
Nice.
So I've been lucky. I mean, I have had two major managements, Jennifer Reddy, who was the first classical opera management person in Australia.
Nice.
And she looked after me beautifully. And Mark Gogol, who...
who you with?
Do you know who Mark is? Yeah.
That's who you're with now?
Yeah, and Mark takes care of all that stuff. So in terms of contracts and... Yeah, I've been lucky in the and also a guy called Peter Hoyland, who kind of looked after my compositional stuff, is also fantastic. So,
nice.
Yeah, I've been lucky, and they're all friends.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I find it hard not to work with people who aren't friends, or they become friends. I don't know what happens.
Becomes friends. That's very interesting. That's great. You and that's important. You don't want to work with someone that you don't want to hang out with or go for coffee. And what's been great, I mean, apart from doing the bigger shows I do, doing shows with people I really like, I cannot tell you how good that is. I mean, like we've mentioned, Colin, and I've done a lot of shows with Marina Prior. We do a lot of things together, and we did our very first show together. So even though she's more musical theatre and I'm opera, so we've had divergent careers, but we've kind of similar in a way. And when you work with someone on stage who has, I've said the word before, generosity of spirit, like someone like Colin as well, or Marina, it's so easy. No one cares who gets the applause, who gets the laugh. It's just the show. The team, yeah.
It's just the team. It's so good. It's like so good.
That's the feeling that I felt the most alive in, whether it's like smaller scale. It's so I wish I had words for it. But actually speaking about Colin, what a unique, and I've spoken about it more in depth so people can check out that episode with Colin Lane. But how interesting, as you know better than anyone, getting opera and comedy. I think the tagline was an opera singer
wants to be a comedian. Opera singer wants to be a comedian wants to be opera singer. Yeah, worlds collide. Yeah, it's a crazy concept, but a fantastic concept. And we've just finished a bit of a tour.
A bit of a tour?
We did a long tour, yeah. And we'll probably get it up again, if not the end of next year, the following year when our calendars allow it. So we'll do another proper
How exciting.
show of it. Yeah, so that's exciting. It was great fun because I've always been a great fan of comedy and just in every sense, just love it. I mean, I'm not a comedian, as you keep saying. No, I'm not. I'm not a comedian. And Colin will say I'm not a comedian.
Okay, if Colin says it, then
I'm not a comedian.
Yeah.
But I've just always loved comedy and great student of it in a way. Just love it. Always just been a fan of comedy from time immemorial, and you can see the lineage in British comedy from Gilbert and Sullivan to the Goons, to the Music Hall to Monty Python to. I love following the line, and you can see the line of how we've ended up where we are. The same with vaudeville in America as well, the Marx Brothers, and if you look at movie comedians and Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy and great teams. I love team comedy in particular, and it's Seinfeld in a way. That's a team that did become a team.
Larry as well, and then the actual team. Yeah,
so that's a team.
Seinfeld wouldn't have happened without Larry.
No, those ideas are just extraordinary. There's just so many. Him when he quit Saturday Night Live and came back on the Monday and said, I didn't quit.
What are you talking about?
Yes, I just love really good comedy. Interesting. I didn't love The Office. You mentioned Ricky Gervais before, but I love him as a comedian.
Yeah,
it's funny. I don't know
the UK
why.
one or the American one?
Well, just both. I don't know why. Like the what do you call it? What sort of comedy do you call that? Fly on the wall.
Did you ever watch Big Bang Theory?
Yes.
Did you like it?
Not bad.
So
I'm older than you though, so it's probably more your generation. I thought that was pretty good.
I
preferred IT, the British IT. What it was called? Was it called that?
Yeah, I don't think it was called IT. I can see it in my head. The Big Bang Theory was good, and then as it went on, it just became the same.
It didn't.
It just got worse. So I despised The Office when I first watched it, but then I gave it another go. Actually, probably like a year or two, or maybe even during lockdowns, and I thought it was just like, this is going to sound so bad. And I've had some at the guests on. I didn't think it was the most genius comedy, but I just thought, it's a fun show. The writing's pretty good. So it wasn't like Arrested Development. I think you'd like Arrested Development.
Yes, I've never done that.
That is phenomenal, right? And that's layers upon layers. The Office is like feel good for the average person, and I don't mean that as an insult to anyone.
You mean the both versions or mainly the Ricky Gervais one?
I haven't seen enough of the Ricky Gervais one. Sorry, the American one. It's like feel good,
Steve
it's
Carell.
easy with Steve Carell. Great performances. You can watch it while you're cleaning or doing something else. But I wouldn't say it's like greatest thing ever, like Seinfeld and I'm spoiled. But I think Arrested Development I loved Get Smart actually. It's actually, we were saying off air, I've actually based one of my animation shows on Get Smart. But Arrested Development, the layers within the layers, the performances, that is so underrated. I don't know why it hasn't hit, people talk about it as being one of the top shows.
Right, I've got to do it. Okay.
I really think you'd like the first 2 or 3 seasons. But then just before we wrap up with Colin, how did it feel? What did it do for your soul when because you're friends with Colin, you play footy with him?
Yeah, we've become good friends. Yeah. I've known him for nearly 30 years. Wow. Well, over 30 years, actually.
And I think you do 20 minutes on a cruise of the golden ticket here in the entertainment industry. You do 20 minutes. How did it feel when you performed that 20 minutes? Did you know that you would have?
So good. Just because I've done shows where I've done comedy to a degree, whether it be, operetta or, but nothing, or I've done my own shows where I've done shtick to a degree. And people laugh at me because, opera singer out of fish out of water to a degree. So, but, I've done my own little routines.
Yep.
Wouldn't say comedic, but to actually do it in a proper comedic setting was fantastic. And I think Colin felt the same doing the music.
Because he's a very good singer as well.
He can really sing. And he was overwhelmed by singing with an orchestra and was a great moment for him because we did a thing called the Pearl Fishers Duet, which is a very famous operatic duet. I think it's almost, for two males, it's possibly the most famous operatic duet. And I taught Colin this duet.
Nice.
And we got to do it with a full orchestra. So that was a great moment for him. And for me, the moment was being free to do, well, we wrote our own material to begin with, which was great fun. But then to have the freedom to do it with someone who is genuinely has comedic chops and is generous.
Generous, nice.
Because he's an actor as well, but he's also a generous spirit. So yes, for me, it was a great moment. And I love it.
And you're lighting up. So for people watching the video, you're lighting up talking about this. And I think I heard you say this was, if not the most joyous thing you've. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Given your whole like lineage and what you've done, and then you pivot into this direction.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's because he's done the whole thing with Frank. So for him, it's just that's what he does.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, I've had the great kind of experience of singing some of the greatest music. So I've had this kind of soulful experiences and of gravitas. Whereas doing this was, yes, as you say, like a moment of light bulb, moment of lightness and joie de vivre and joy. Yeah.
You reached enlightenment.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's called In Tales. Did you record any of it? Can people?
Yes, we have we just got a little CD of stuff. I don't think there is a recording. No, but that's to come. That's what we're going to do next.
Oh, okay. That's so exciting. We'll have to talk about that for next time. And before we do a quick rapid fire segment, the one thing I want to tie up is rejection. In your line of work, is a commonplace, as an actor.
God, yeah. Yeah, okay. Of course. Yeah. So your management will put you up for something and say, no, he's not right. So yes, rejection. But that's the industry.
And have you changed your relationship with it, or can you handle it? Obviously you can, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this, but does it still impact you as much?
Of course it does, yeah. But, I mean, I've been lucky because I fell into the industry where I never really auditioned, and it's only latterly in my career where I've had to audition because, doing different things and wanting to do different things. Because people see you in a certain box.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're the opera guy. You're the guy that does carols. No, you're not a comedian. No, you're not a real actor. So it's trying to change people's mind about that kind of thing.
That's very exciting, though.
Yeah.
Doing the comedy thing and the way that you light up.
Or just being an actor.
Yeah.
Because people don't see me as an actor either. So even though I purportedly am seen as a singing actor, but not as an actor. So I'm trying to move into those kind of areas as well. It's like, oh, no, you're not that guy. And I'm going, well, actually, yeah, I can be that guy.
And also good for you because, you've been doing this for so long. You could be, inverted commas, stay in your lane, just do this, do that. But
also because I am in a lane to a degree, they kind of, that does kind of label you as well. Yes, they do want you to stay in your lane.
But you could stay there, but to actually...
No, I don't want to.
Yeah, but especially, with when you've been doing something for so long, it can be overwhelming, can be scary, but you're like, that's exciting. So you just, I don't have the words for it. That's exciting that at this stage in your career, you put your hand up for something.
Oh, like no, that. I'm still learning and still want to do different things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. I have nothing to add to that. We're going to do a very quick rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs to mind, but you can take your time to think about it. Ready to rumble.
Mm-hmm.
What's been your special ingredient to work all these years? And we've probably answered this.
My special ingredient? What do you mean?
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
What is it about you, though, where you can just keep on doing all these things and work and, be successful for as long as you? I know.
I just love things. I love what I do, and I love learning, and I love doing new things.
Do you have a philosophy in life that you follow? I can see you accessing.
Yeah. Like life philosophy. Still looking for it, which is probably my life's philosophy.
Yeah, still looking for it. I like that.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find what my philosophy is.
Yeah.
Which means that must be my life's philosophy. I'm a seeker.
Seeker.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Very much.
And I love learning. Don't stand still.
What brings the best creative content out of you?
Pressure. Maybe. Pressure? Best creative content. personally or with other people. Can be either. Yeah, maybe safe space. You know, like an environment where you can just flower in the sunshine. Good soil, well watered, lots of sunshine.
That's a very good analogy. I'm not going to comment on them, but I love that one. Which means more to you, performing for the Queen or performing at the AFL Grand Final?
Mm-hmm. Oh, got to be the AFL Grand Final. Sorry, Your Majesty.
You know, it's still very, very prestigious. Both are. I think you've already answered this, but do you have a next big dream or goal?
No. Just where I am.
Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
My honest answer to that is, if you have to answer the question, maybe it's not for you. Because, you know, when people ask you, should I do it? Or what can I do? It's like, well, I never had to ask that question. If you seriously have to ask the question, then you're probably not meant to do it.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have, if the answer is not inside, maybe.
Yeah, you feel it, you know it. Sometimes we need permission. We feel we need permission.
You don't. You don't. You just got to do it. Or there's nothing else you can do but do that, because that's within you.
Agreed.
I think.
Well said. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you. Mm-hmm. What is the one question I should have asked you?
No, that's too tough. The one question you should
Anything you want to type, anything you think that we skimmed past or you just want to bring up? Or?
I have no idea. You know. No, I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
And I'm very interested in your career as well.
Not much to be interested at this stage, but
that's okay. No, you've done a lovely job. Thank you. Very flattered and honoured that you've had me on. I can't think of it. I mean, there's a million questions you could have asked. Million questions you could have asked me. I don't know. No, I don't know. Maybe we need to do another interview.
We'll do a part 10. And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
I'm not very good on it. davidhobson.net.au. What else have I got? I think there's an Instagram thing. Might be David Hobbo Tenor. Oh God, I might have to send these to you.
I will have them in the episode notes so
okay.
People can check them out, even if they're not 100% correct. People are now forced to click on those links. And
davidhobsoncolinlane.com.au perhaps for our entails thing. I should update my website and my Facebook and my Instagram.
They looked great from what I saw.
Okay.
But anyway, you are inspiring. Thank you so much for doing this. You have a beautiful life view, and it's very contagious. It makes me excited doing these things, and it's been a joy to chat to you, and also
I'm honoured, flattered
to also do the research as well. So yeah, thank you so much.
Good on you, Michael.
I love the phrase generosity of spirit, and this so applies to David. David understands how to give something deep within you to a performance, going up and beyond to make the experience as great as possible. Often when we see a performance or even have an interaction, we see the physical person. But what we really connect with is authenticity and a revealing of the soul. David reminds us how our passions and love of the craft are necessities and the key to success. It is very rare to have soulful encounters and/or experiences, but when we do, it moves us beyond words. It's simply empowering. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. That's what I consider true generosity. You give your all, and yet you always feel as if it cost you nothing. Simone de Beauvoir. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.